Welcome back to another episode of Briggs & Co., where we're leaving average for Joe. This week, I brought on an incredible individual who brings a new perspective, a topic that we have yet to discuss really in this amount of depth on the podcast. So I'm super stoked, super grateful to introduce you all to Lauren Ritchie. Lauren has led workshops on mental skills training at prestigious Alberta Ballet School, Capilano University, Harvard Dance Center, and so many conferences and conventions around the world. We chat about her early career as a competitive dancer, her post-secondary education, the reasons she is passionate about sharing tools and techniques for overcoming the mental and physical challenges in the dance industry, and honestly, so much more, including some stellar book recommendations at the end. So make sure you stay in it all the way to the end to get some of the best book recommendations I have had yet. Anyways, without further ado, it is truly an honor to introduce you all to this beautiful soul, Lauren Ritchie. I hope you enjoy this episode. Keep leaving average for Joe.
I think we're good.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for coming on. I know your schedule it's actually really funny because your immediate response to email is it's busy season, and I'm like, "Oh, my friend, I hear you."
Yeah.
So, how are you doing? Where are you at in the world? What's going on with your day-to-day life right now as it's September and things are starting up?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. Are we starting recording or is this just like casual chit chat?
Record is always on because I just use it as filler if I ever need, but always game to leave out the recording as well if you need edits done.
Yeah, no problem. Um, yes, it's a fun a fun adventure to always enter into the competitive dance season. I feel like so many people count January 1st as their new year, and I think most dancers and choreographers are like, "Oh no, it's actually August 1st." And that's even different from when I started teaching. But yeah, so since August 1st, I have essentially been full speed, whether it's mental skills workshops, teacher trainings, choreography that has started. This is the year, or this is the time of the year where I just wear so many hats, but I imagine that you do the same.
Yeah, it's I don't even want to say curse because we do it to ourselves, but it's a sweet and sour situation when your schedule fills up because it's usually filling up with things that you love, but it also, there's pros and cons and opportunity costs to everything you do in life, and so yeah, this is a busy season. But I actually got connected with you because of Mo, and I feel like that's our mutual friend. I had a recording with her back in, I don't, maybe June, July. She was like, Briggs, you should chat with Lauren. So I jumped at it, and I'm so grateful that you agreed to come on. I mean, for listeners that don't know, I I brought on Lauren because of your extensive background on mental and physical health, specifically for dancers and performers. But I actually, Lauren, wanna take this opportunity to just chat with you about your personal experience in the industry, going back to sort of some Cole's notes on your childhood and then how your career sort of developed and progressed. And that's kind of how I take all of my episodes is sort of take a step back to their childhood because I personally believe that that is where the foundation, the developmental phase happens, and the reason we are who we are in our in our life is a lot to do to our childhood and the experiences we had there. So it's a lighthearted episode. I mean, I there isn't really too rigid of a structure. We just have a conversation, and I like getting to know guests, and just who they are as a human being first. So if you want to take listeners into maybe a little bit of background on who you are, where you came from, and your interests when you were young, and then bring us up to speed, and I'll kind of trickle in some color as we go.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Awesome.
I was introduced to the competitive studio space at a very young age because I have a sister who's 3 years older, and she was in the dance studio starting in baby ballet, and some of my earliest memories are watching the senior dancers who looked so old and watching them stretch in their jazz class and wanting to be doing what they are doing. And I think at times I was actually trying to do what they were doing. And when the teacher lets that little one to come in and stretch with the older kids, and I'm sure that they were all like giggling and laughing, but I have a very clear memory of it because I loved it so much. So I was first introduced to the competitive space at a very young age. And I think the older that I got, the more I loved the combination of the artistry and the athleticism. The artistry, because by nature, I think I'm quite animated and I have a lot of emotions and expressions that are always asking to come out and be playful. And then
Mm.
I have an innate love of grit. I like to push. I like to see what's possible. I go at most things in my life full throttle. According to my husband, I have one speed, and that is full out. So I think it was a beautiful environment for me to be able to get to hold on to so many different parts of myself. And I talked to a fellow peer and mentor. He's a sports psychologist, and I was asking him, do perfectionists find dance, or does dance breed some of that mentality? And he's at the conclusion that it's like chicken and egg and you never really know. But I definitely appreciated like the RAD syllabus that had benchmarks and goals, and you had an exam, so you were like working towards something. And same with the stage. I loved knowing that there was a day that you had to be ready for competition and you wanted to be your
Mm.
best. And I liked those benchmarks. So I stayed in the competitive community my whole life. I started to do
And was this in BC? Like this was in um Vancouver, or where was
no, this was
this?
in Alberta. It was
It was.
yeah, I
Okay.
was born and raised in Sherwood Park, Edmonton, and now I live in Calgary. But yeah, there was just such a thriving community, and there still is, and I'm very grateful for what the dance community has offered because it is so much of my childhood. But I
Hmm.
started to do pretty well at competitions around 11, 12, and that is at the same time when I started to experience social issues at school. So I think that dance really did become my escape and something that I felt so proud of. And it was where I was building my sense of worthiness and confidence when other environments were really, really hard.
Mm. Yeah, no, and I think that's so relatable to a lot of people, whether it be dance or not. I think if you are competitive by nature and you had extracurriculars that sort of pulled you away from junior high, elementary, those younger school years, it was almost like this duo, like what's the word I'm looking for? Duo profile, or like duo personality, or whatever it was, because I'm reflecting myself anyways, just thinking of the two different sort of figures I can visualize, like the person I was at school, but then this like person I was at dance, which felt like that was like family and who I really was. And I think that's just natural. I don't think there's anything good or bad about it. It's just that that is often what happens based on the, external circumstances and nature of it all. Do you have any sort of, if somebody is either a parent or the individual themselves that are sort of feeling like they have two two figures or two people they're trying to be, do you have any advice or any sort of, I don't know, something you can touch on in that situation?
Knowing what I know now about some of the components that shape identity and belief systems, part of what we run into as dancers is the fact that it's an early sport specialization for many of us. Not everybody. There's many people who start dance a little later in life and thrive and have great successes. But when you're in that competitive stream, it's very common that dancers would start at 2 or 3 or 4. And their version of diversifying is like adding tap or adding hip hop. But from an identity
Oh.
perspective, that's a kind of more of the same, that kind of vibe. So we probably feel it a little bit more with this dual experience because we are specializing early, similar to gymnasts, similar to figure skaters, and we're also wearing sort of this identity and this pride to ourselves that we get to thrive in that space. And when I'm looking at what is recommended from research and from a really healthy identity space, it's that we do want many different experiences in our young lives so that we're not even feeling that dual pull. It's like there's many parts of us that we're interested and exploring and
Mm.
enjoying. But when I talk to
Mhm.
parents now and knowing where some of that over rotation of identity happens, you can essentially walk right into an athletic identity crisis, which is something that I experienced later. And many Olympians will speak about it. People in the NFL talk about it because their career is usually 2 years. And then all of a sudden you've
Yeah.
dedicated your whole life to this. And then what? But it's not spoken about as much because I think we are so young when we specialize. And what's even harder is that the competitive dance community doesn't really mirror the professional dance experience. And we don't have those kind of
Mm.
conversations. So
Yeah.
if I was talking to parents and kids, which I still do, I encourage that they continue to expand many different parts of their artistry and that they do try some of those sports. Now, I was a kid who dabbled, but like nothing was quite the same as dance. But when I did want to try volleyball or did when I did want to try snowboarding, we had to make really hard decisions because volleyball practice was 7 a.m. before school starts. And I didn't get home from dancing till 10 p.m. And my mother, very
Mhm.
rightly so, said, "You need to sleep. You are
Yeah.
going to be overtired, you're going to get injured, etc." But then it took away the opportunity to really dive into another experience or sport. And I do think I would have liked volleyball and I probably would have been decent at it, good at it, I don't know.
Yeah.
And same goes snowboarding. If I went with my friends, my mom knows her daughter and was like, "You will come home with a broken collarbone." Why? Because I have one speed and it's full throttle. And that would have been thousands of dollars of the competitive season ruined. But then I got to the point where I was in my 20s and I didn't really know how to. And I did try. Like I have
Yeah.
funny stories of me just doing donuts down an entire mountain, but I really did lose that early skill acquisition. And I do believe and I know that we can continue to grow. And if it was really important to me, I would learn how to snowboard. But it's more,
Well, it's also a risk factor. We start to like I said before, opportunity cost. Like it's like, well, is this worth this much to me right now?
yeah,
Given everything that's going on in my life, we start to really balance and do the math in our heads as we get
yeah,
older.
absolutely.
It sounds like at a young age you were obviously very driven, motivated, and loved the art and sport of dance. Did you have figures in your life? Obviously, it sounds like you had a good parent figure in your life. You had teachers at the studio, but was there anyone that you can think of now that you're older, reflecting back, being somebody that isn't sort of immediate that comes to mind, but somebody that played a role? And the reason why I ask is because I think that there's figures in our life that have an impact on us when we're young that we don't necessarily realize at that age, but we realize as we get older. Is there anyone that comes to mind, or and if not, then who really did make a big impact on your life at that age?
Well, I have spent so many years in self reflection, curious conversations, therapy. I know the answers that come up really quickly for me. There is no
Hmm.
denying that Stacey Tukey was a pivotal force in my life and that she often was a north star of inspiration and aspirations. We didn't have the internet when I was training, and so all you had were the people in the building and in the space, and I was incredibly lucky to have someone not only of such a high caliber of dance and artistry and athleticism, but also the kindest, most loving human being who did not need to look at a junior dancer or give her the time of day, but she did. And I have this funny, when she was leaving, and I think she was going to Vancouver to do like Ballet BC and take her first big move to another city for professional
Yeah.
work. Somebody had made her a quilt, and then all of the dancers were signing the quilt as a goodbye. She still has the quilt, but I made no bones about it. I was like, I love you so much. I'm going to miss you. I can't wait to watch you grow. Like I was 12 or something. But
I love
but
it.
but what an incredible example. And there was a couple other dancers in that senior class like Lori Cahoon, Lana Cahoon, who not only were they demonstrating and role modeling work ethic, but also silliness and fun.
Yes.
And and they were kind to me. Lori Cahoon let me follow her around like a little shadow because I was just in awe of her. And what's funny is that I now teach both of their children and that I work
What
with Stacy now and her bridge program out in New Jersey for pre-professional dancers. And I just
amazing.
it goes to show how small and strong and intimate these dance studios are and the experiences. And again,
Yes.
I also had a wonderful ballet teacher who was way ahead of her time, Sally Ogden, who corrected with nothing but love. And so when I look back at my competitive studio experience, I have a lot of gratitude, and there is no denying that that environment shaped my belief system about who I was, but also inspired and motivated me to like drive forward strong and with
Yeah.
conviction to anything that I really wanted to
Yeah.
explore. Shelley did a great job of that. It was just like she still models a growth mindset. She'll come into my classes and want to hear about mental skills and leadership practices. And she's at a studio for 56 years. Like she could hang it up at any point, but
Yeah.
when I'm doing classes, she makes a point to come and keep learning. And I remember her doing that even when I was a kid. So just very, very grateful for what that studio and what that community was for me.
Yeah, and it sounds like characters and qualities of within those characters, it was how they made you feel, and that feeling made an impact on you. And I always think about that, like so often when I do reflect on my own personal journey and the figures that had a role in sculpting who I am as a person, dancer, business person today, like it is people that had an impact with the feeling, whether they made me laugh, whether they made me reflect, whether they made me smile, like whatever it wasn't how talented they were as a dancer, although that was complimentary. It was how they held themselves and then made others in the room feel. And like regardless of dance, regardless of sports, that's just in general. Like if you find yourself in a work environment, a business environment, like anything like that, it's how you make people feel. It just transcends in a way that is almost unspeakable because, like you just said, it came around full circle. Now you're working with Stacey Tukey, and it just goes to show that how she made you feel and how you also made her feel left an impact. Um, yeah, and I know that there's science behind that, leaving an imprint on us more than anything else is just how people make us feel. So I think if listeners can take away anything from that rant that I had, it's just just be an observer of how you are making others feel and how they are making you feel. Um, and a sidebar, I often do this practice, but I'll be almost a like fly on the wall for a couple minutes of my day and start to think about how the people in the room are making me feel, and if it's a good feeling or a bad feeling. If it's a bad feeling and I'm around those people a lot, should I probably reassess about what kind of people I'm around? Just a little sidebar, what I is something that I do. And I think that those are um, sometimes, in dance, a competitive environment can create those sort of icky environments, those icky circle of people. I don't know if you have a similar experience or anything like that, but I know for a fact, growing up in the competition world, you were often in spaces where you felt like you didn't have too many friends. It was very competitive because you were up against X, Y, and Z soloists. But you start to reflect on what soloists had a laugh and brought a smile backstage when you were waiting to go on stage your turn. And then as you grow older in the industry, you stay friends with those people. So anyways, um I'm curious to know if you have any sort of pinpoints in that adolescent years, once you started to get to teenage, sort of early 20s. Did you have a goal? Did you have goals that you were gunning for? Did you have a visual for what your future would look like? Or were you very sort of go with the flow, kind of gal?
Go with the flow and me aren't
Yeah,
usually
figured.
in the same sentence, which is hilarious because when you compare on the scale, the flow scale, I have certain friends who are just like literally kick back, feet up, let the river take them wherever. And then I have friends that are hyper control. So I don't think I'm necessarily an extreme on either end, but I lean more towards just like the clarity of the intention and the goal and the purpose. Now, I will say that when I was in high school and the question started to come up of, do you want to dance? Do you want to do this as a professional career? The answer was, of course. But again, it
Mm,
was a bit of that underinformed, of course, because we didn't have the internet. And I didn't necessarily know that it was a lifestyle as much as it was a career, and that a career isn't the same as a job and a job isn't the same as a hobby. We didn't take the time to actually think through the logistics and the realities, which is why programs like ITP or the Bridge or even I think CLI has been gaining popularity. It's because there is a transition that our generation needed but didn't have. So I looked at the senior students in the studio and went, well, what are they doing? And at that time, it was cruise ships or Tokyo Disney. And you could move to Vancouver, although we didn't really know what was going on. And then a few people tried to move illegally down to the States, and some worked better than others. But my parents were like, well, that's not an option for you. So I was like, okay, okay, I got it. Um, this is where it would have been really nice to have the conversation of lifestyle, finances, realities. I don't know if I would have chosen differently. I just knew that I wanted to dance. But when kids tell me that now, I have a lot of questions around what that means to them, what assumptions that they're making. And I have so much gratitude for the programs that have been created because it was what I needed.
yeah, such a fair response. When I sort of started to dive into your background a little bit and education, obviously, first things that come up is your post secondary education and certifications. So, um, has that always been ingrained in you, a passion of yours to pursue education and always stay educated? Or is that something that you had to work towards?
It probably depends on the field. with dance and artistry and what it takes to train as a dancer or train dancers, I've always had a deep curiosity, but it's actually the transition from hobby, high school, competitive dance to professional dance was my implosion. And it was a series of unfortunate events. It had many points of capital T trauma. And it is partly what informed how I teach, but also my education and how I pursued the curiosity of the impact of leadership and teacher and the classroom environments. When
Mm,
we were talking about remembering how you make people feel, that to me is the job of a dance educator and a leader and any adults in youth sporting environment. So I found myself teaching dance, and I was quite a young teacher, but I obviously had a lot of enthusiasm for it. I do love to share. I love to encourage. I had a lot of creative ideas as a young newbie in the space, and I had some really awesome mentors who saw that. But it doesn't take long to realize that when you're in these competitive studio environments and you are the leader and you are the teacher, teaching steps is the easy part, and it's the part that has the least
mhm.
impact. We understand that as a human being, you can train three things. You can train the mind, the body, and the craft. And dance has always done a great job or prioritized training the body. In the past few decades, we've normalized training the artistry in competitive spaces when it comes to improv and when it comes to video and projects and whatnot. I've seen that only grow and grow and grow since I was in the studio space. But the mind component is just starting to really integrate into the practices of teaching. And so I went back to get my master's in education in coaching studies, which means that I was sitting in a room full of soccer coaches, basketball, hockey, synchronized swimming, rock climbing. Like
Right.
we were talking about the art and the craft of coaching because I have seen environments that crumble humans, not even kids, just humans. And then I've seen leaders and teachers and educators who transform lives. And we know it's not even just about the words that are said. It is how they are said and the art and the intention in which they're said. And then there's just a whole host of practices to increase motivational climates of a classroom, and how do you actually facilitate confidence building, because it's not just doing the steps and it's not just achieving the steps. If that was it, we wouldn't have a conversation of confidence ever. Like, oh, just do this and then you get that. But it became so
Mhm.
clear that there was just so many invisible practices and qualities and opportunities in the studio space. And I believe as a teacher and as a leader, that is your greatest responsibility, is that you have so many young eyes and hearts and lives. And I'm not saying that you're going to be for everyone. I know I'm not for everyone, but if I can plant a seed of belief, love, encouragement, support, possibility, there is no greater gift to me.
Yeah, and there's no time in your life that you get to where you should start being a leader. I think you like sort of as a segue, coming off of what you just said. I think for some odd reason, when we're younger and even like teenage, early adolescence, and even in our 20s and 30s, like I don't think we realize the impact that we have on anyone that we are around. Like I think some do, but I so often think about the moments in my life where they didn't have to be 20 years older than me. They were just a year or two or even my age. Somebody that just offered a hand or let me in on a tip or something. It just had such a profound impact. that I don't think it's worth overlooking. I've said this to another guest before, but just don't forget about the impact that a simple, you know, word of advice, or in a kind way, in a supportive way, can do for somebody that you might not realize needs it. You never know, right? Like I feel like you just never know um what somebody's going through or what they have back home, and if they don't have anything back home or X, Y, and Z. It's just like it costs you nothing, but the possible sort of fortune that you're giving somebody else is tremendous. And I may be saying that and preaching it so much right now because I'm currently on a project where I'm a director, and I feel like the eyes that look up to you is so much, but I also look up to other people in the pyramid of positions at this company that I'm working for right now. And it just goes down the line like that. Like we're a community. We've got to build each other up. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah.
we social creatures by nature. And I think that that has been part of the friction and frustration with how much we are digitally connecting, even though it offers so many great opportunities like this conversation. It's that we are human beings meant to share space and support one another. But again, I believe that young humans, most young humans come out knowing this and have generous spirits, or at least understand that you can
Mhm.
share and be kind, some more than others. But the environments in which we are raised, whether it is our homes or our studio spaces, reinforce a certain message. And so when I see pre-professional dancers, ones that have graduated and they're now in these programs, I love having the conversation and sort of the cleaning of the slate, that this is not the same environment that you trained in. There is an opportunity here to reestablish who you want to be and how you want to show up in community. Because I know that
Mhm.
certain competition environments really encourage the competitiveness or the hyper comparison, hyper competitiveness that can exist. But I also have been part of many studios who have no interest in that framing and that language, because we are an art form and we are artists who are choosing to compete in dance like a sport, but it isn't. And when you do enter these professional spaces, it is the opportunity to really contribute and be a community contributor, knowing that that all comes back and that it is reciprocal. And I
Yeah.
love that Marguerite Derricks on the dance podcast said, "Do you want a job or do you want a career?" Because
Mhm.
if you just want to book a job, okay, I guess kill the audition. I like, okay, but
Yeah.
who you are on that job and how you show up and how you show up for others and your ability to own your energy, read the room, think
Read the
ahead,
room.
all of these very invisible, often mental skills that are important. That's what builds a career. And full circle conversation to even where I'm at in my own, I can say that the relationships and the way that you show up is wildly generous when you too are that.
Oh, yes, 100%. I I know that you are working with a lot of studios, a lot of programs, you're traveling a lot, you're speaking on panels. Is there something, and as we opened up the episode with, this time of your life, this season is always very busy. Do you ever feel like there is something inside of you that, and because I guess I'm asking you this from a personal standpoint, feel like you are done with this chapter in your life with education on this topic, or do you feel like you're only getting started? How do you refresh? How do you sort of, yeah, look forward and go, yeah. where are you with that, I guess? Terrible question I asked, but
No,
maybe you got some of it.
I understand the essence of the question because this lifestyle is countercultural. It's actually quite rebellious at times. When I go to do my taxes, the tax system is built for somebody who works 9 to 5 and has
Yes.
some kind of corporate, company behind them. I understand that it is really hard to be an entrepreneur, a sole proprietor. I've been an entrepreneur, an accidental entrepreneur for over 2 decades. That wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily the plan, but by signing up and committing to these kinds of jobs and experiences, that's what you do. And I have had many iterations where I participate in the dance community in different ways. And I have given myself full permission to pivot, full permission to step back, full permission to dive wholeheartedly, like all in, depending on what my intuition and my heart and my soul is saying as what the next step is. And it's a bit of a spiritual practice as well as a logistical game. But I know after doing so many iterations of teaching full time or just doing choreography or teaching while at a corporate job and doing it in the evenings, that I do enjoy having many hats. And I think I'm saying I enjoy it because I keep choosing it. So there's something there. But when I look at the mental skills education that I have been prioritizing. And the biggest thing for me recently has been the faculty development and faculty programmings, which can give the teachers the tools to create more motivational and inspiring and connected and thriving classrooms. That has been so fulfilling. And I know that by still choreographing and teaching myself, that I'm in the trenches with them, so I can come and use examples and report back that I'm invested and have my hands in many different spaces and places. But I have
Mm,
to remind myself that I too only get 24 hours in a day, and that the many hats that I love also each have their own demands and responsibilities, and there are definitely times where I over rotate. And on seasons like now, I I just know that I'm like, okay, there's going to have to be a different pacing, or you say yes and you say no even when you don't want to say no, but it's like the calendar's full. I still negotiate that a lot, but I have given myself the full permission to leave at any time if I'm not feeling like this is where I'm called or connected. I've given myself permission to go back to school if something else really excites me.
I love
But
that.
when I sit and get very quiet with myself, my heart is still fully invested and connected and very much inspired by what I am doing on the daily basis. And when we look at a more traditional version of success, it's the materialistic things. It is money, it is status, it is houses, it is cars, etc. And yet when I define success, I prioritize freedom of time. I'm free to choose who gets my time. I appreciate having autonomy and like full autonomy of my life and my work. And I love working with people. I love collabing, but there is a gift in not giving my time and my energy and my space to corporations or people that I don't align with. So
Mm,
it's a redefinition of success. And also I've had many hard conversations for myself and for peers and for friends that this countercultural freelance type life, which maybe it's becoming a bit more normal even as I say that, it is a harder one when it comes to predictability of finances, when it comes to not having any kind of health care or, I don't know, safety nets that perhaps other positions might come with. But those are questions that you get to ask yourself along the way. And I remember sitting at a corporate desk just crying. And
Mhm, mhm.
it's because of the dance studio environment taught me at such a young age what it feels like to have your soul alive and for you to be able to show up fully yourself, expressive, authentic. We get to fail in public and love it because it's part of the process. And when I'm sitting tippity tappity on the keyboard for 12 hours a
Mhm.
day trying to sell something that I don't even really care about, my soul was screaming and I was unwell. And those pencil skirts and high heels felt more like a costume than any costume I had ever worn. But when I
Isn't that
yeah,
crazy?
when I think about where I am in my life right now, how many different ways I've participated in the dance community, I have to be checking in with myself often because I think that that is the respect that my soul deserves. I have to monitor and protect my heart and my brain with how much overconsumption I may receive on my devices. There are times where if your device is all dance and your day has been all dance and you see everybody else hustling in the dance community, you can get burnt out and defeated and exhausted laying in bed. But if when
Yeah.
I start to feel deflated and when I start to question if I even want to do this anymore, it's usually a sign that I haven't connected enough in real life with the people and the students and fellow teachers and educators who bring so much joy and life into my life. It probably means that I am not letting myself play and create, and I'm just watching others play and create online too much. I also have to check in with myself because that athletic identity crisis that I navigated and that foreclosure of identity of I am a dancer, everything I do is dance connected, my worth and my life is built upon dance. We know that that's a really narrow and very fragile place to be
Yes.
because my career is very consuming. I can cross that line where every day becomes dance, 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 and I show up in the world through dance. And so if I'm starting to get burnt out or tired, it's usually like, hey, go float down a river with a bunch of friends
Yeah.
who don't even know what competitive dance is and go hiking, go out, go explore. When I'm burnt out and overwhelmed, it is the greatest invitation to check back in with my heart and my soul and my body and reevaluate what the ratios are.
Well, and especially like you just already noted, is it can really be also consuming, especially at certain seasons in the year. It can just be so like captivating. You end up losing track of time, track of days of the week. Like even thinking on cruise ships, like you go by days of the cruise. You don't go by Monday to Friday. You don't go by times. You go by when like your call time is on your call sheet. Like it can become such a blurry separation between dance and may it be your career or just your extracurricular, whatever it is, and then just your identity. And you want to make sure that you can always separate those two. And like you said, you know yourself well enough to go, it's time I go float. It's time I go put that hat off, hang it on the wall, and put my head back on straight, as just a human being without labels, without titles, without roles. And I battle and struggle with that all the time, as I know many do. It's just a practice that I think we constantly have to stay on top of throughout our life. And I guess you really did talk about so much there of sort of like tools that you use, exercises that you do when you're starting to become aware of maybe the overexertion of energy in the field of dance or in your career. So I have a few things here that I want to ask you as we sort of come to the last few minutes of the episode, some takeaways for listeners and some just lighthearted sort of fire round questions. It's been just like such a neat conversation to talk to somebody that is so brilliantly educated in, I guess, the psychology, the physical aspect, but then also has the experience in the actual world of dance. It's such a beautiful, y- I guess, gift box of talent and skills and insights that you have, Lauren. That it's no doubt that you have the career that you do and have the circle of influence that you do, because it's few and far between people that I've been able to talk to of in this depth about these topics. So I appreciate everything that you're doing and the impact that you have, not just as a dance educator, but just as a human being on this planet. The impact that you have on so many people's lives, and you're carving out, I would say, a new path, a new I guess, dare I say, role, career for the up and coming, because I can already see people underneath you that look up to you, that are trying to follow in your footsteps to also educate teachers on how to properly host a room, how to properly host conventions and competitions and all of that stuff. So, to wrap up that sort of rant and tangent, thank you for this path that you are carving, although I know it is ever so wondrous, confusing, and unknown. You're doing a brilliant job at it. Um, yeah, absolutely. I want to ask to do you have do you have anything that leaves you optimistic for the next year? Be dance, be not dance, doesn't matter. But is there anything that's like, I just feel like there's some pivots that are happening in the world right now. Obviously, with growth in AI and all of this wonderful technology, I like to really look at things glass half full. Is there anything that's leaving you optimistic, hopeful, or just curious for the next sort of year or two ahead?
I believe that if you're a teacher, you're fundamentally an optimist because you invest in processes and people and experiences. You create choreography, knowing that it is going to grow and build and challenge and enhance the people that you're working with. For me, the practice of teaching is the practice of optimism. And I get so excited because I do believe that you can have high performance with well being. So, that for me is always exciting to start with. Sometimes it's new groups of students. Other times it's students that I've worked with for a long time and we've been able to be on that growth journey for a long time. But
Mm,
teaching's absolutely an optimistic practice for me. I also, as much as I love to play with some AI and have fun watching the world just um I don't know, be all the things, it has
yeah.
reinforced my belief and my conviction and the truth of how much we need to be together in rooms, seeing the whites of each other's eyes, learning how to vulnerably and intimately look at one another and practice that deep connection and listening and moving in spaces together to feel each other's humanity. And the
Mm,
more that we get into those spaces, I am brought back into my optimism and my belief, not only in the power of dance and the power of our community, but really the power of humans.
yeah. Yeah, and it's just to go a little off topic. This is so funny because you you kind of separated their dance and humans, and I think I went to a salsa class here in Miami last week, and I knew I wasn't about to step into a class full of individuals that looked like me, that were the same age, that had the same interests, but I didn't really know the demographic. When I say that I was the youngest by I don't want to assume, but I honest to goodness, like 30 plus years, I was the youngest by far. It reinforced the fact that dance has a way of talking to souls, and no matter what age you are, you can two-step, you can cha-cha-cha, you can do whatever, but dance lights a spark in our tummies and our souls like nothing else on this planet. That's why so many religions and cultures and eras that have existed on this planet have incorporated into their lives. And so I think it is such a beautiful thing that we get to experience every single day. So to move on to my sort of last two or three questions, I'm really into physical books right now. I kind of put away my Kobo and started to buy the page turners. Do you have any favorite books? I'm assuming that, just based on your education background, that you've read a lot. Is there some that stick out to you? Maybe some that you've shared to other people?
Okay, I yes to all the books, but what genre, what kind of things do you get?
No, 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 anything that comes to mind, anything.
Grace, I have read 75 books this year. Just this year.
I know.
So,
So then, so what is like, honestly, something that you're like, ding, or if you
okay,
have to take 20 seconds to think
yeah.
about it, but like it does not matter. Does not matter.
Okay, I'll give you different ones that pop up for different reasons. I love memoirs, and especially if people are dabbling into the audiobooks or the fact that you get 15 hours of listening time on Spotify. The Jeanette McCurdy's I'm Glad My Mom Died, Viola Davis, what were some of the other ones? Those two I actually had just recommended to a friend, which is why they're front of mind. When it
Good.
comes to creatives, I love Liz Gilbert and Big Magic. Again, it's a spiritual conversation with your creativity so that will be for some people and not others. But I love Liz Gilbert, and she has been a guide in my life that when we go back to people who are willing to generously share in public and generously share out loud, she is one that I am forever grateful for. I have a
Hmm.
ton of sort of fantasy type ones, and that's only just this year. I swore off any kind of fantasy series. I thought Lord of the Rings was the biggest waste of my life, and then I was like, you know what? We're gonna try and do this. We're gonna read for enjoyment. Uh, and so, but I there's almost too many because what I do is I ask people what they're looking for. Like the books that tend to do really well or most people love are like Kristen Hanna's The Nightingale, or
I love that
her
one.
book this year, The Women, was really interesting for me because
Okay.
some okay, I'll preface by saying it's about a young girl who wants to go over to the Vietnam War and help as a nurse, and it takes her through a journey over there, and then also the reentry coming back to the States and everything that comes with returning back home from that experience. But what was interesting is so many people online were like, "Oh yeah, the beginning was great," and then the ending, I don't know, it just got kind of repetitive or boring, or their comments about the end, I was like, "Oh, this is fascinating," because if you are somebody who has gone through events or had to navigate PTSD, it was one of the most brilliant and honest experience and recounts of what it is like to come back with that. And so I
Ooh.
was a sob fest. But other people on the internet were just like, "Oh, that was boring." It's like,
No way.
you've never you don't get it. Okay, cool, 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 cool." But it was
Right.
again, I go back to because I've been reading so much, especially over this past, year, every book is written for someone. So I'll even read books and I was like, "Oh, yeah, this wasn't written for me, and that's okay. I'm not a huge romance reader, and yet I have friends who love the romance Hallmark movie type vibes, and I'm just like, "Oh, that's just not for me." And I'm a believer just for my own growth. I will do a variety of nonfiction where books like Grit and Growth Mindset, who is Carol Dweck's work, which is so referenced in pop culture and can be really helpful for coaches and teachers. Like I'm a believer to listen to the memoirs, to read nonfiction, people and things that are really fascinating and interesting. And then also, can you find the moments where you just want to escape and you're like, let's live in a magical land where there's just like fairies and unicorns. But
Let me just float down the river and read my book.
yeah, yeah. But I will say like Abby Wambach's Wolf Pack is one that I encourage young people to read, young females in particular. Um,
Mm,
I love Sean Akers' The Happiness Advantage and Big Potential. He is a positive psychologist who studied and researched and worked at Harvard. And again, I have talked to people who find his optimism and positivity um I don't know. They are not optimists, so they do not meet at that
right.
level. But again, I recommend that book often because it debunks so many of our ideas about happiness, and that's the happiness advantage really shares the approaches that will help with that. And then big potential, I go back to every teacher or coach and people who are in charge of groups and trying to create environments to thrive. Like, yeah, I would read that one.
Yeah, these are excellent and exactly why I wanted to open up the can of worms with you because I knew you'd have good ones. So I am out here just absolutely adding to my list. So thanks for
You bet.
that. Okay, what are your favorite, like maybe top two movies? Do you have any?
No.
No, that's
I
fine.
uh yeah, I no. I I again, sorry, I'm just thinking about another book you have to read. Maybe You Should Talk to Someone. That's where
Okay,
and then
absolutely.
Atomic Habits. See, there's too many.
Yeah, those are
Um,
good.
movies, not so much. Oh, there's a funny scale that I have. I don't really watch many things that are below 7.8 on IMDb.
Oh my
What
gosh.
what I'm going to give my time and attention to and where I'm going to take my precious time and sit down in front of yet another
Yeah,
device, I want it to be quality or entertaining. And I am rarely
yeah.
moved by movies in that way. Just personal preference. Give me
I hear you on that, and I hear you on that more and more lately.
Mhm.
And so I've been actually not even lately, like for the last few years, I've just been finding documentary style videography is the only thing I turn on my device to watch. Like it is become such a thing that even uh being in the dance world, I'm like, Briggs, you should go rewatch Mamma Mia. You should go rewatch Stomp. Like you should go rewatch these things. And I carve out time to do it, and then I go to do it and I'm like, I can't for some reason I just haven't been able to do it. So I am trying to stick to my guns and revisit some of those productions, some of those theatrics, just to stay I don't know, keep the creative juices flowing, I guess, if you will. But I hear you on that point because I am very much the same in that way. Um, okay, if you could have the opportunity to explore space or the ocean, what would you explore?
Probably space.
And what would be your death row meal?
Well, we have a very funny conversation about this because I have a ton of food allergies. So
Not like Mo. Oh my god.
Mo has a list on her phone that when I'm on my deathbed and we're pretty sure I'm about to kick it, she's going to bring all of these foods and then we'll shove them down my throat and then probably have to finish me off with like a walnut. But
Yeah.
I
Oh no.
I have a lot of food allergies. So if it's ones that wouldn't kill me, I
Yeah, yeah,
would
fair enough.
I would probably I just don't care about food. I care about who it's with. So
Oh, I love
I don't
that.
know, maybe like a really good steak or something. If it was
Yeah.
I'm on my deathbed, I would be shoveling like donuts and pastry and bread and
Yeah.
chocolate upon chocolate. And then, like I said, she would slide a walnut in and I would be gone very quickly.
Oh God. What a way to go. Honestly, Lauren, that was such a treat for me to take an hour and chat with somebody who I know is well educated. And I am so happy knowing that there is people on the planet right now that are being influenced and learning from what you have to offer. So thank you for being that figure. Thank you for not being selfish and keeping all of this education for yourself. Because as I've said before, I know there's probably many times where you're like, you know what, this is, yeah, no, I'm gonna throw in the towel. As I mean, I'm maybe just talking from a personal experience, but there, it's not always easy, like you also mentioned. So thank you for being a figure in so many people's lives and including mine now. So I appreciate it, and I wish you nothing but the best with this upcoming season ahead and year. Um, yeah, it's, I think it's going to be a good one.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to connect. And now that we have connected, I trust we will just keep crossing paths because that's how it works.
That is how it works. Lauren, thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your night and a wonderful
You
weekend.
too. And thank you again. We'll talk soon.
Yes, sounds good. Bye bye.
Bye.
Well, that was a frickin' blast. Like, I truly love her to bits. Lauren Ritchie is doing some tremendous work for the mind. Yes, we can train our physical bodies so much. We can put our bodies through a tremendous amount as athletes and dancers and artists. But at the end of the day, our most valuable tool is our mind. And Lauren is doing some incredible work in this department. So thank you, Lauren, for being such a positive, uplifting source of energy, source of education for so many people. It is wonderful to see the work you're doing. Please keep continuing to just pushing the agenda on the mental health, mental training for dancers and coaches. If you have any questions for Lauren, you can reach her at Lauren_M_Ritchie over on Instagram. She also has a link on her Instagram bio for all of her other sort of events and resources and websites. So check that out. Without further ado, you can always reach me at admin@briggsandco.ca or check out the Instagram at Briggs_and_co_. It's been a fan frickin' tastic time. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. If you did, hey, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to share it, friends and family. To also hit that subscribe button. What the heck is that about? Not sure. I don't even know where to find it. Oh, good job, Briggs. Anywho, next week's guest is tremendous. She is a vibrant soul that has had a vibrant career and still does. So I'm honored and grateful to have had her on. Stay tuned. Keep your eye out on the Instagram page to get a little sneak peek into who the next guest is. But that is coming at you same time next week. You guessed it, October 16th. In the meantime, be extra kind to those around you. Give a nice tight squeeze to friends and family. It's Thanksgiving weekend coming up here in Canada. So I hope you spend that with people that make you feel loved, make you feel special. And it's always an honor when I have the chance to sit down and chat with individuals like Lauren Ritchie. So I am utterly grateful for this life I get to live. Take care of yourselves. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Keep leaving average for Joe, baby.